Next speaker is
I'm asking that everyone be calm and respectful, and I want to remind everyone that you need to address the board. Don't address the audience. Address the board.
next speaker is Miss Judith Jones. Would like to address the board on banning books.
Repeat the name. The name was misrepeated.
Judith Jones.
Yes. It's loose. Good evening. My name is Dr. Judith Jones. I'm a third generation born and raised in Dearborn. I went off to study, married, and raised my family. I returned in my old age to teach and live near my family. I am not in favor of banning any books in Dearborn. If parents do not want their children to read a book, they should not allow them to do that. But to foist their views of one group of citizens on the rest of Dearborn doesn't work either. This is what Hitler did, and we all know how that worked out. As a society, we are richer if we do not limit what others can read. To ban books is to close our minds to learning from people who are different. I'm not going to read the message from my sister, Patricia Hartshorn, a lifelong Dearborn resident. She was at the meeting Monday, but is unable to attend tonight. What I love about Dearborn today is our diversity. Diversity is our strength. I appreciate the wonderful staff and students my 4 children interacted with at Edsel Ford. My kids' friends were from everywhere. I am a member of the American Federation of Teachers organization at U of M Dearborn. I taught science to over 1,000 teachers in 28 years at U of M Dearborn. Many of my students work in Dearborn Public Schools. My husband taught 8th grade math at Woodworth. I love teachers. Citizens like me believe in free access to information and a safe, inclusive learning environment for all. Right now, there are people among us trying to divide this community and attack public education. We stood strong against Terry Jones when he came to Dearborn to divide us. What I saw on display Monday made my heart sink, she says. Thank you, school board, Mr. Martin, and Dr. Groover for your hard work. What happened after your presentation was depressing. We all want the same thing. We want children to be supported. We want great schools where children can pursue their dreams. We all want intelligent, strong, and healthy children. To see attacks on our teachers are disheartening. I am here to support our LGBTQ plus community and our wonderful teachers.
Thank you for your comments.
Next speaker is Mrs. Stephanie Butler, No City. Would like to speak to the board on book review.
So I'm not gonna go over the books because that's beating a dead horse. What I am gonna talk about though is slander and libel. So when you take the white woman in the room and then you turn thousands of Arab American Muslims into white Christian nationalists that are being led off a cliff by a sheep, insinuating that these people, some graduated from Harvard, are a bunch of idiots who can't think for themselves is disgusting, is absolutely disgusting, and you know it. So let's talk about harassment. Let's talk about the facts. I have not even heard about your librarian from Fortson who put my information and my residence on Twitter to get doxxed, knowing that I have children at home. I filed a report with this body, and I have gotten nothing, okay? So let's not talk about that, all right? Let's talk about some facts. So there's a little misconception. We're going to clear that up tonight. Did I send my daughter to the library to check out that book? 100% I did. 100% I did. I knew what was in the book. However, when my daughter got to the librarian, and let me ask you, has this ever happened to another child, or is it just my child? Where she was asked if her mother was Stephanie Butler, to which she replied, yes, she is. Okay, well, I can't check this book out to you. Well, why can't you check this book out to me? Because your mom's on social media saying really mean things about me, and I don't feel legally that I can check this book out to you. Wow, so you denied a student. Let's talk facts, okay? We're going to talk facts. To where I was on the phone with my daughter the whole entire conversation till the time that Miss Hassan beeped in on the other line, to which she said, Mrs. Butler, just wanted to let you know that your daughter's down here. She's trying to check out a gay book. I said, whoa, 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 stop right there. Miss Hassan, is this a normal book? Like, it doesn't have any sex scenes, anything like this? Obviously, I knew what was in it. She flipped through it. She said, yeah, it's good. Okay, then let her check the book out. So you guys are slandering my name and pretending that these people have no brains to think for themselves because they don't want porn in the school.
Next speaker is Miss Faye Namer, No City, would wish to address the board on books.
Would you please repeat the name? Oh, I'm sorry.
Miss Faye Namer.
Sorry.
Good evening, board trustees, respected board trustees, superintendent, concerned parents. It is quite disheartening that after so much strife and public outcry, this body has offered abysmal recourse to the parents who have clearly voiced concerns over sexually explicit, obscene, pornographic, and lewd content in their children's school library, a manifestation that subjects this body to criminal offenses under the threat of prosecution per MCL 722, sections 674 and 675. Further, the books in question are listed among the most challenged and most censored titles nationally on the American Library Association's website. So this phenomenon is not unique to the city of Dearborn, nor its residents. Additionally, the notion that anyone is advocating to ban books is baseless, considering that our media specialists are being asked to screen, vet, and curate content for literary consumption, a process they already follow. However, the existence of these books has uncovered deficiencies in the said process. Superintendent, the statement you released was balanced. It addressed the varied sentiments around the topic, but it fell short of bringing much needed closure to this very sensitive matter. Pursuant to Michigan statute governing the public school system, MCL 380.10, parents are to be viewed as partners in our children's education. Furthermore, the law itself recognizes that it is the natural and fundamental rights of parents to determine and direct the teaching and education of their children. To that end, first and foremost, I urge this body to clearly outline that sexually explicit content will be removed permanently, not temporarily, from the collection and should not have found its way onto school library shelves. Secondly, the release statement puts the burden on the parents to have knowledge of the school library's 300,000 unique book titles, their contents, and their literary value, thereby negating the process of challenging or opting out of specific book titles. This represents a short-sighted proposal which requires a more practical framework. Thirdly, Superintendent, the most important sentence in your release statement is the following. We are also aware that the vast majority of students in our care are minors, still learning about life in the world, and they are not ready emotionally and intellectually to process some content. I couldn't agree more and hope that we find meaningful closure to this issue so that we can focus on equally important matters. Finally, and most importantly, the issue pertains to the health and safety of our school-age children and should not be tainted by any political, religious, ideological, or ulterior agendas. That said, we put our trust in this body to act in the best interest of our students.
Next speaker is Mr. Ahmed Al-Riyashi. Would like to speak to the board on sexually explicit books.
So I'm gonna start off by talking to the community. I hope you guys realize what elected officials have just.
Please address the board.
Oh, I hope you guys. That's okay. Hey, stop the time while they're cutting me off. To the community, I hope you realize what the elected officials have just done. They are using ordinances against us, threatening us with arrest, trying to keep us quiet, and trying to stop us from speaking up for our children. This shows their true feelings in regards with this situation. They have metal detectors at the door as if we are criminals. What are you guys trying to say about us? But you guys allowed Brian Stone to try to incite the crowd, and you guys didn't cut off his mic. What does that say to you? Let me also make mention of some of the chatter that us residents are hearing. The ones vocal against the concerned parents of Dearborn, the ones accusing us of being outsiders. Perhaps the most important point that most of our community members may have overlooked is that virtually every single community leader or supposed leader and self-appointed spokesperson that has chosen to condone and or support the exposure of our children to sexually explicit content in our schools does not, I repeat, does not have children attending our public schools. They have either chosen to have their kids attend private schools, religious or otherwise, or their children have already graduated from our public school system, or they do not have children, nor do they live in our community. The bottom line is their kids have been sheltered from the indecency they are subjecting our kids to under the banner of safety, love, and tolerance. That, to me, is a definition of hypocrisy and virtue signaling. We don't want, nor do we need people tell us how to raise our children. Your job as a board is to ensure that the safety and education of our children, not to raise them. We are here to demand that the Board of Trustees hear us and implement our resolutions that we have submitted. Anything short of that is telling us that you feel too comfortable in your positions and that our legal rights do not matter. We the parents will not settle for anything less than what we proposed through our resolutions. As I've stated previously, you sit in those chairs through our votes. You sit in those chairs to represent our needs and our interests, not the other way around. Show us anything short of respecting the will of the people, and we will have new community members sitting in those chairs. Hold on. We don't play politics when it involves our children. Either respect that fully with no compromise or step down or get removed. The ball is now in your court. Best believe.
Thank you for your comments. May I please remind everybody to, in the best interest of time, we've still got a lot of people that would like to be heard. Can I please remind everyone to line up when you see your names up on the screen?
Next speaker is Ms. Lauren Olson of Dearborn would like to speak to the board on censorship. Go ahead.
My name is Lauren Olson. I am a lifelong Dearborn resident and graduate of Etzel Ford High School. Reading is a foundational skill critical to future learning and to exercising our democratic freedoms. Most of us will not travel far from where we were born, but reading helps you see what life is like somewhere else or somewhen else or from the perspective of someone very much not like you. Narratives are how humans learn best, and it's why we've used narratives since the beginning of civilization. Narratives help shape our understanding of our world and our place in it. We can trust individuals to make their own decisions about what they read and believe. My parents never really policed what my sister and I read. In middle school, I went to Snow Branch Library constantly reading a book a day over summer vacation. In high school, I talked about books with many of my teachers, and occasionally we would exchange books we thought the other would like. I never did get my copy of Mouse Volume 1 back from Mr. Paz. I have read and vehemently disliked Less Than Zero by Bret Easton Ellis, and it didn't even mentally scar me. I'm still an avid reader, and I am such an avid reader because I was allowed to enjoy reading. We should do everything we can to encourage reading among teens and kids. Parents have the right to guide their children's reading, but parents should not be making decisions for other parents' children. Specifically, a small group of parents should not dictate what books other people's children are allowed to read. Just because you personally do not want your kid reading a specific book does not mean that book does not belong in the school library. There is a parent opt-out form, which means you can keep your child from reading those specific books, and there are private school and homeschool options, but public schools are meant to be for every student from every walk of life. Young people deserve to see themselves reflected in a library's books. Like Flamer by Mike Curato. I have read it. It is in no way, shape, or form pornography. It is a semi-autobiographical graphic novel about a young teen boy at a Boy Scout camp the summer before high school, grappling with his realization that he may not be straight, dealing with bullying, worrying about how his father is becoming abusive, and thinking about suicide, and ultimately deciding to live and discovering that his friends in fact don't hate him for being gay. It is an all too common lived experience for many in the LGBT community, and it lets kids know who may be going through something similar that they are not alone. This book's inclusion is literally about saving LGBT kids' lives. Removing and banning books from public libraries is a slippery slope to government censorship and the erosion of our country's commitment to freedom of expression. The challenge of these books conflates any information about or story about the LGBTQ community with groomers, including the Etzel Ford librarian for setting up a banned books display. It's a recent tactic of the authoritarian far-right wing to call anyone part of the LGBT community or their allies child molesters. This isn't even an original take on homophobia. It's very old hat in this country to call any queer person a child molester with no evidence other than being part of the LGBT community. That's bigotry, plain and simple. And I just believe kids should be allowed to have freedom of reading.
Next speaker is Cliff Alloway of Dearborn. Would like to speak to the board on age-inappropriate books in our school libraries.
May we have the mic on, please?
The on.
Try bringing it closer to you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, Verizon. 2022, it's been a real interesting year. I really was not expecting to be standing here. I'm an avid reader. I'm a product of these Dearborn Public Schools. Stout is my junior high school, which I attended. You'll find my family with books. We're curled up in any corner, always reading. I never thought I'd stand to boycott or to ban books, and yet here I am. I never imagined I would be standing in front of a board telling them that they do not have the interests of my child in their minds, and yet here I am. I read one of the books, and I was very surprised to find a graphic novel, as she just spoke about, of children gathered to masturbate, excuse my language, everybody, to masturbate into a bottle with the person who does not participate must drink whatever is in that bottle. Another part of the book talks about children taking wieners and putting it up their... I'm a 43-year-old man and I'm embarrassed to say this stuff. And yet you say it's okay for this to be in the hands of my children. Shame on you. Like I said, I'm a product of these Dearborn Public School teachers, and my teachers, Miss Bristol, Miss Holmes, Miss Gruce, if I had uttered any of these words, would have grabbed me by my ear, dragged me to the sink, and washed my mouth out with soap. And how I wish they were here today to drag each one of you to that sink and wash your mouths with soap. Shame on you. Shame on you. Shame on you.
Next speaker is Miss. Next speaker is Miss Yasmin Al-Mauri, would like to speak to the board on age-inappropriate books in our libraries. Miss Yasmin
Would you please repeat the name?
Yasmin Al-Mauri, not here. Next speaker is Miss Nicole McLean of Dearborn, would like to speak to the board on the book issue. Next speaker is Mr. Hassan Nahmi, would like to speak to the board on sexually explicit materials in books. Next speaker is Mrs. Crystal Paulson, No City, would like to speak to the books on the Me Too. Mr. Speaker, next speaker is Mr. Harry Saleh, would like to speak to the board on no hate speech. Next speaker is Dr. Sterniak of Canton, would like to speak to the board about respect we owe our children. Mrs. Vivian C, it doesn't say the last name, of Canton, would like to speak to the board on our children's safety and parental rights. Over here.
Yes, they have the right to speak. They just have to identify from where they're at. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. It's me, Nancy Sterniak. Tasharrafna. Talk about diversity. I was born in the country of Brazil. 12 years old, I was working on a factory 9 hours a day. I was working for an hour and a half just to pay for my bus trip. 2 buses to work and 2 buses to go home. Actually, not home because I went to night school. And you know what? In my street, I played together with the Asian, with the black, with the white, whatever was there, we played together. I never heard about separation in Brazil. We were all the same, all barefooted, kicking soccer balls, which were not really soccer balls. We got old socks from our fathers, and we put paper inside, and we played soccer. As you know, we are very good at soccer in Brazil. Anyhow, I came to the United States, and I have 5 graduate degrees. I taught elementary level, junior high, high school, college, graduate classes in college, and I love my students. Everyone who comes to my classroom, I teach. But there is one thing. If anyone comes to my class and shows me a picture that's in this book, out of the class, that student goes. And you know what else? You know what else? Parents are in charge of their children. We must respect them. Every time my boys, 3 engineers, when they were in school, they came, oh, my teacher. I said, no, you listen to your teacher. And I knew at that time, teachers respected the parents. And the board needs to respect the parents. Masalama.
Next speaker is Dennis Duggan. Would like to speak to the board about the importance of experts. Dennis Duggan. Next speaker is Giovanna Williams. Would like to speak to the board of Dearborn. Would like to speak to the board on separation of church and state, history of Dearborn.
Oh, hold on just a moment. They called your name and you missed, you were delayed or?
I was waiting.
Okay, I'm sorry for the confusion. What is your name, please? Viviani, would you please go back to him, trustee, or her, I'm sorry, trustee Mosley?
Yeah, we did have you, so go ahead.
Good evening. I would like to address the board and say that I'm not from the community, but I'm from Canton. And the reason I came was because we need to support all the parents. The children are in jeopardy all around the country. It's very clear from the many ways the children are being attacked with the ideology, the sexual ideology that's perverting the schools. And this is not only in the schools, it's all over with Proposal 3, the way that's gonna be embedded in the Constitution of Michigan, that parents will have no say, will have no rights in their children's option to go and get castration, sterilization. So it all starts here in the schools. It is being embedded, it's coming, it's sneaking into the families, and it is very concerning. Being from Canton, I see this as an issue that doesn't affect just Dearborn. It affects all of us. Because if Dearborn, with the support and everyone that you see here tonight, if Dearborn falls, the entire country will fall. We will have no place to go. And as an immigrant, like a lot of us here, where do we go? Where? Where do we hide? Do we go to Canton? Do we go to Dearborn Heights? Do we go back home? As some people here have said, these are not American values. This is not how we were founded. This is not how it should be. You need to repent. Everyone here need to repent and allow the children to be kids, to learn. Where are the academics? My daughter, Isabella, was the one that was said the Pledge of Allegiance. She loves this country. We love the country. And we all value education. I know a lot of people here, they value education. They've been to college. And it all starts here with the public schools. So why don't you focus on education? Where is the math? Where is the reading? Where is the history? Where are the strong values that we all came here seeking? Where is that? That's the question. I want you to go tonight, and when you lay your head on the pillow, I want you to ask that. Where are those values? And if Dearborn falls, where do we go? Thank you.
Next speaker is Ms. Giovanna Williams. Would like to speak to the board on separation of church and state and history of Dearborn.
I come to you today as a longtime citizen of Dearborn. I've lived here over 20 years. I am a parent of a student in Dearborn Public Schools. My son and my husband are with me. I come to you as a community member. I love all of you. I really do.
Please address the board.
No, that's all. That's all I have to say to the public is that I love my neighbors. That's it. I'm back to you. Okay? However, I do disagree with them. And that's okay too. Okay? I want to say that to the board that there are a lot of 18 to 20-year-old voters. It's not just the people in this room. I'm going to tell you that the yellers and screamers and shouters have scared away a lot of innocent young queer kids. They have made them terrified. And I come to you today as a mother, as a member of this community, as a wife, a mother, a queer mother, and a citizen of this fine city. Some of us may not be old enough to remember. I'm going to pull up his name. I want to get it right. Orville Hubbard was a segregationist who took great pains to keep people like us apart. And that is not what this community stands for. We really want to stay together. But the only time I ever hear people say the word pedophile or filth or disgusting is when they're talking about people like me. And as a woman who always has to fight for their right to exist, as a Black woman who always has to fight for their right to exist, as a queer person who has always had to fight for their right to exist, I am sick and tired of people telling me to go off and be whatever I am somewhere else. I am not going anywhere. I am sick of the only books that my son can read are about slavery and lynching, things that I find disgusting. Those are things that I hate. Those are things that I find unacceptable. But we are always reading about those things. We never get to read about love, kindness. If it bleeds, it leads. Anything that gets shot, time somebody gets in a car accident on Beach Daily or Gully, it's the first thing on the news. If a lesbian couple gets married down the street, you never hear about it. Quiet, it is my turn.
Please address the board. And please be respectful of the speaker.
Books are media. Quiet. Reclaiming my time. I want 5 seconds back.
Please continue. Please continue now.
I will not be shouted out by people who are of a faith other than mine.
Thank you for your comments.
Next speaker is Dylan Waglia of Garden City. Would like to speak to the board on book banning reconsideration. Dylan. Next speaker is Ms. Erin Burns of Dearborn. Would like to speak to the board on library books.
Good evening, Superintendent Maleko and our board members. Thank you for your service to our community. I know you don't have an easy job, so I appreciate the work that you do, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. I'd like to start by saying unequivocally that I support our LGBTQ+ community. I always have, and I always will. And I appreciate the courage of our members of that community who have spoken here tonight. I really do appreciate you. You know, in Dearborn, we talk a lot about being a diverse and inclusive community, and I would like to see us live into the best of who we are by living into and realizing those values. And if we are to be a truly welcoming and inclusive community, that has to include our LGBTQ+ community members. It has to. I'm speaking, thank you. As a longtime educator, I know from experience that school and education is not just about making sure that our kids get A+ on their tests and their papers. Holistic, true, fundamental education is about making sure that our kids are going out into the world as critical thinkers and as adults with open minds and open hearts. And we have the opportunity as adults in this community to set that example and to live that example for our kids. I would encourage everyone to do that. Some of the language that I've heard describing the LGBTQ+ community has been incredibly harmful. And some of the books that folks are seeking to remove from the shelves, not to not have their own kids read, but to keep any child from having access. Some of those books will save the lives of our LGBTQ+ kids because they mirror their lived experiences and what they're dealing with. I'm speaking, thank you. My time is not up. Thank you, I'm speaking. Thank you. I am speaking, thank you. Again, I would encourage everyone to live into the best of who we are, to be the diverse and welcoming community that we claim to be and that we absolutely can be. Thank you to our board members for your time tonight, and thank you to our educators, our librarians, who I trust and respect. Thank you.
Next speaker is Mr. Jim Downey of Dearborn Heights. Would like to address the board on books.
My name's Dylan. I was before Aaron. Can I still speak?
What was your name?
Dylan.
Just one
Dylan.
moment. We're going to find the card.
Good evening.
Yeah, go ahead.
Good evening.
Hold on just a moment because we missed this gentleman
Oh, I'm
that
sorry.
was called first.
Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead, Dylan.
Good evening, governing board, our superintendent. My name is Dylan Wigella. I am a high school teacher here in Dearborn at Dearborn High, speaking as an individual. I love this community, and I love my students, and I will fight for them every day of my life. A couple statistics I want to start with. 40% of the homeless youth in our country are LGBTQ+. LGBTQ+ youth are 3 to 5 times more likely to complete suicide. I bring this up because when I think about my classroom, I want this to be a space where everybody is welcome, regardless of race, nationality, immigration status, religion, sexual orientation, gender identity, you name it. My students, I believe, have always felt welcome. For everybody in this room, no matter what student comes into the classroom, I have their back, and my students know that. But students don't feel safe in our schools. Look at Monday. They don't feel safe. We're worried about indoctrination when our staff isn't even comfortable enough to be out in public to our schools. Our students aren't comfortable being out. At my high school, the Gay Straight Alliance poster has been ripped off the wall in my school 5 times last year. Our posters vandalized. This is about more than books, because if it was about books, the main book, This Book is Gay, was actually never checked out by a Dearborn student ever. Period. It wasn't. Not one time. The main book of concern, Ask the District, has not been checked out. So what are we talking about? It
Please
has
show
not been checked
respect.
out. This is greater. This is a greater thing going on in our country. It is an attempt to destroy our public education. There is a movement to discredit what we are doing. We need to stand together and fight against that. There's a movement to privatize your schools, to have charters come in here so that people can make a profit off of it. I've seen it. I've taught in other states. I've taught in Arizona where people are making millions of dollars off of public education money. We need to make sure we protect against that. We need to make sure that our students feel safe. I have one last thing. If it's really not about the LGBTQ+ community, if it's really not about that, then I should be able to hang this flag in my classroom tomorrow with no problem. This is not political. It says, everybody is welcome here. If everybody's welcome, they should be welcome here then.
Next speaker is Mr. Jim Downey of Dearborn Heights. Would like to address the board on books.
Good evening. You don't need a flag to be inclusive. I've been an educator for over 20 years. I've gone through the Dearborn School District. I taught in the district for 8 years. I love my profession. I love my fellow teachers. I respect you guys. But I have to emphasize that there's nothing extreme about objecting to obscene content. I've heard a lot of comments about how the LGBT community has been mischaracterized and terrible things said about them. We're all against that. But I've also seen disparaging remarks made about the people here protesting the obscene content. That is not extreme. There is nothing in the least extreme about not wanting that material being promulgated onto minors. And I'm going to ask that needs to stop. There's nothing extreme. I'm not an extremist. I'm not a right-winger. Most of the people here are concerned about their kids. Don't mischaracterize them. Don't disparage them. And to my extreme disappointment, I've seen it coming from employees of the district. Employees of the district disparaging the people that pay their salaries. That is inexcusable. We're people here concerned about the children. That's what binds us together here. This is not an anti-gay issue. We embrace all of the kids in the school system. We want them to feel welcome. We want them to feel safe. This is an issue that is addressing decency. Let's focus on that issue. I hear a lot of platitudes about freedom and liberty being somehow in danger. It's not. This is an issue about decency. Focus on the issues. And for those of you who are very committed to these books, if you believe in those books, defend the merit of those books. I appreciated the woman who came up here earlier and talked about one of the books and actually explained, gave some context to it. Okay, that's fine. We can talk about that. But don't call us extremists. Don't vilify us. Don't tell us that your liberty is at threat. It's not. This is an issue about decency. I thank you for the opportunity to speak. Thank you so much.
Next speaker is Mr. Mustafa Murtada of Dearborn, would like to speak to the board on problematic books in elementary classrooms.
Good evening. I bring to you greetings of peace. I am a parent of two beautiful children in Dearborn Public Schools, both in elementary. Our son, who was in the 4th grade last year, stumbled into a book in the classroom library. I was going to mention the title, but decided not to avoid further commotion in this meeting. Basically, this book is about a kid coming to terms with his sexuality. And the book shows a sexually inappropriate image. When seeing this image in the classroom, our son, age 10, came to us that same day and reported to us what he had seen. We had no doubt that this book was intentionally placed in the classroom by the teacher. Was this book pulled from the classroom? I don't know. Can a child attending that classroom now opt out? I don't know. Now, there's this notion by politically motivated instigators, among them a member of our city council, Aaron Burns, who just spoke a bit ago, egregiously claiming that this is an issue with folks that identify as LGBTQ. Well, I would like to redirect this narrative by saying that placing such books in our school and classroom libraries is an infringement on our inalienable rights to religious freedom and conscience, and more immediately, on the rights of our children to be protected from material with sexual themes. This book placement, among many others, is an attempt to inculcate sexual exploration to our children, to us as parents, and to an overwhelming majority of parents in this district. This is unacceptable. We demand respectfully that the DPS administration and school board take the resolution submitted to the superintendent, Dr. Maleko, for parental rights seriously. We will not allow our children to be exposed to such material in a space we expect to be safe for our children, our schools. Needless to say, we appreciate the tireless dedication by the school staff. We understand it is an immense challenge for teachers day in and day out to care and teach our children. For the vast majority of you who do so without any hidden agendas, may you be blessed. Also, we appreciate the diversity in our city, but in order for diversity to truly exist in harmony, one group must not transgress the rights of another group. This was a transgression of our rights as parents and the rights of our children, and this is a red line. Thank you.
May I please remind everyone to do not mention names. Thank you.
Next speaker is Mr. Muhammad Harhara of Dearborn, would like to speak to the board on teaching our kids. Muhammad, not here. Next speaker is Amin Zrik of Dearborn, would like to speak about constitutional matters.
Can you hear me? Okay. Good evening, school board. First and foremost, I want to express my gratitude for allowing me to speak to the school board in regards to this matter, but there seems to be a huge misconception in terms of what the matter really is. The matter isn't about the suppression of sexual orientation, political affiliation, or whatever it may be. It's about the graphic material strictly, whether or not that material passes constitutional muster under state and federal constitution. It's pretty straightforward. First and foremost, it's pretty alarming, the fact that these books had already made their way into the curriculum and into the public school libraries without any sort of vetting system. There has to be a vetting system, something that regulates, something that keeps the books to a certain standard, a standard that's not established by federal discretion, but a standard that's completely, unequivocally based and reflective of the Michigan legislature's intent of what's afforded to protecting our students regarding obscenity and the material within the books itself. Another matter I wanted to bring up is the school board. You have something, first and foremost, that's incredibly important. It's called fiduciary duty towards your students. Students, it's not even debatable. They spend more than half their day at schools, may be involved in extracurricular activities, doing extra studies in libraries, whatever it may be. They spend over 50% of their day in school. And there's a concept called locus parentis, under a legal doctrine, that you are technically responsible in servitude of the parent's interest while they're at school. The fiduciary duty that you owe to these students is a duty of loyalty and duty of care. And the very issue here is to make sure that there is an independent committee that is formed and that does reflect the very protections that are granted by the state constitution under MCL 722, section 673, to the very students in making sure and ensuring that they are not exposed to early on obscenity material that may later on cause issues to their mental health or possibly other issues at home. Lastly, I'd like to say that I'm a proud product of Dearborn Public Schools. I remember Mr. Maleko in Saline Elementary, made my way through Fortson High School. Now I'm a lawyer. And I could say that I'm very proud to have been a product of this actual school system. But the fact that it took a parent to discover that these books have been already circulating for over years within our Dearborn Public School system is highly alarming and concerning, and makes us question whether or not the Dearborn Public School Board is fit for the very duties they were voted to commit and uphold to the community itself. Thank you for your time, and I hope you keep that in mind, that it's your responsibility to provide a conducive environment, a learning environment for students, and to make sure that they're protected from the obscenity material that's actually circulating within the school system today. Thank you.
Next speaker is Hassan Shami of Dearborn, would like to speak to the board on library books.
Good evening. My name is Hassan Shami, Dearborn resident. I dished my speech because there's been so many wonderful brothers and sisters here that let their voices be heard. I want to speak directly to President Roxanne McDonald. President Roxanne, we know that if there's any issues here, somebody disturbing the peace, you need to ask the police to escort them out. That's why they did not escort the person here who was talking to the crowd for up to 2 minutes before you asked them to direct to the board. Shame on you, President Roxanne McDonald. Roxanne, we also need to tell you that you serve this community, and we know there are some media outlets here waiting to smear the Muslim community, and you allowed that to happen because you knew there was going to be a reaction between this inflammatory remarks here and the people in the crowd because how sensitive this issue is. So shame on you. To my fellow community members, I'm so proud to be a part of this community with you guys, but please understand that there are people planted here to create a reaction from you for the media. So be cautious, stay patient, and remain calm. And since there was a recent rant in the beginning for 3 minutes that mentioned the founding fathers in America, I also want to say that the founding fathers fought for freedom of religion. So on behalf of the Muslim community, I want to congratulate you on the birth anniversary of Prophet Muhammad, which is this week.
Next speaker is Mr. Muhammad Musa of Dearborn, would like to speak to the board on books.
Assalamu alaikum. A few speakers stated that they don't want Dearborn to become disunited. I don't know about you, but this looks like unity to me. My name is Muhammad Musa, and I was born and raised in Dearborn, Michigan. I attended McDonald Elementary School, Eunice Middle School, and both Dearborn and Fortune High School. As someone who has once walked the hallways of both Dearborn and Fortune High, I stand with the majority of the community members who are here today to voice their concerns about the inappropriate and sexually explicit books within our public school libraries. I've heard some people say that parents need to raise their children better, and others stated that this content can be found online. But this does not negate the fact that these books are still inside our public school libraries. A passage from one of these books states, and I quote, "I've met a variety of interesting people through sex apps. They are predominantly used for sex though. They are sold to us as social networking apps, but we all know what they are really for," end quote. The author then continues to talk about a variety of apps that children and students could use to meet up with strangers and have sex with them. Would you want your children to read this type of book? Would you want your children to download these types of apps? Would you want your child to meet up with a stranger and have sex with them? If not, then listen to the community. Listen to the majority. Listen to the people who put you in the seats that you're currently sitting on. Don't put the books on the shelf. Thank you.
Next speaker is Mr. Khalil Uthman of Dearborn, would like to speak to the board on explicit books in the school library.
Good evening. First of all, thank you to all the parents. Thank you to everyone who took the time off and come over here to express their concerns. Second, we believe in democracy. The minute we voted you in here, your title changed from candidates to trustees. But apparently you broke that trust. These books that are in concerns have been in our libraries since 2019 through a SORA collection purchase via Wayne County. And this is something that we have to talk to the commissioner of Wayne County, how these purchases are taking place. But the process that Dr. Glenn Blakey proposed, apparently it's been in practice, in place before. So that process failed. That process failed to vet these books and remove them from our libraries. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time talking about libraries and the books in the libraries, but I wanna mention this process is so complicated and it's not gonna serve our community whatsoever. And if it's good, it could have been prevented these books from coming to our libraries back in 2019. One thing that I have to highlight, and a lot of people repeated the same thing, this is not anti-LGBTQ. This is not anti any community. This is not anti any groups. But apparently one thing that we noticed tonight, everybody that came over here and stood for the books and supporting these books to be in our libraries, 90% of them are teachers in our schools. They are paid by our tax-paying dollars. They are speaking the same narratives, which proves to me there is a rumor yesterday that there was a note that was sent out to them to come, our email, that to come and speak about these books to be in our libraries. We are paying for their salaries. We love them. I have 5 kids, and all of them, they go to Dearborn Public Schools. I expect every single employee or district employee to take a stand on this, at least look at the books and see what are the sexual explicit contexts are saying. This is not about any group or any community. We are talking about porns in our schools. We stop sexualizing our kids. Thank you.
Next speaker is Jamal Al-Jahmi of Dearborn, would like to speak to the board on books in the libraries. Tamam. Next speaker is Matthew Raperino. Would like to speak to the board on legality of those books and materials, as well as the board's legal obligation to protect the children.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks to everyone in the audience. I stand here fascinated by what I'm watching tonight as we watch the school board construct a narrative that is completely false. Many people stand here and say, we want to protect our parental rights. And this is nothing about the teachers. They support the teachers, and they say we are not opposing LGBTQ rights. And then yet other people come up here to support the books solely for the purpose of LGBTQ rights. And yet, as a school board, you allowed someone to stand here for 3 minutes and disparage the Muslim faith. You did not stop it. You allowed another person to come here in front of the media for 3 minutes and incite the crowd. President McDonald, you did nothing to stop it. On Monday, you shut down this audience and these parents from speaking. And some people have talked about it, and I will remind you. MCL 380.10 states it is the natural, fundamental right of parents and legal guardians to determine and direct the care, teaching, and education of their children. Fundamental right of the parent to direct the teaching of their children. The statute then says the public schools of this state serve the needs of the pupils by cooperating with the pupils' parents and legal guardians to develop the pupils' intellectual capabilities and vocational skills. And you failed every parent in the way you violated their fundamental rights on Monday to speak and the way you've treated this issue. The fundamental rights of the parents is a huge issue right now in this country and across this state. The ability of the parents to direct to you what they want taught in these schools. And some people stand up here and say, we shouldn't ban these books because no one has ever checked them out. That doesn't mean people haven't read them or students haven't read them in school. What you're doing right now in this state, in this board, is over-sexualizing children. And you're doing it for political reasons. And you have an attorney general right now in this state, Dana Nessel, who says she wants to put a drag queen in every school. And you're allowing it to happen. I say to you, it's time to stop with the political nonsense. Thank you.